You made it through the antechamber, now you're on to the big leagues. I'm WOTLK, and this is the 4 Keepers of Ulduar in about 6.5 minutes. To start, we have Hodir. This fight was a ton of fun on the PTR, and I will say we had no idea what we were doing at first. One tank is fine here, and it's similar on 10 and 25 man, with 25 man just having more frozen NPCs to free at the beginning. To initiate the fight, start freeing these NPCs as they're insanely helpful during the whole encounter. For the entirety of this fight, you should be strafing or jumping, or you'll get a stacking debuff just like the last boss in the Nexus. In addition to that, ice will fall from the ceiling that looks like a blizzard, and it makes a white circle. Don't stand near or in this one. For the main abilities Hodir uses, we have Freeze, which is a dispellable root that will force you to take biting cold stacks if your healers hate you. Flash Freeze, which is the main mechanic of this fight, where he will start to cast this and you'll see a few new rings showing up on the ground. Stand near, but not in these rings, as packed snow is about to land here, and when it does, you need to stand on it as quickly as possible or you will get frozen like the NPCs. It's important that you break out anyone that gets frozen as quickly as possible, including these little helpers. The mage, for example, conjures a toasty fire that will prevent the freeze root and cold stacks, while granting a big damage buff to your ranged DPS that could also stack a 2% spell damage debuff on the boss when it procs. The moon can cast a small light beam that increases haste by a soothing 100%. The shaman will energize a player with a storm cloud, where that player then runs to their nearby friends to give everyone a 135% crit damage buff, and then the priest will actually help with healing the whole raid as well as dispelling the freeze root on nearby players when possible. The last thing about this boss is his frozen blows, which is a melee buff that reduces his physical damage dealt but adds massive frost damage as well as a couple thousand raid-wide damage every 2 seconds. And finally, this fight's hard mode is simply beating his ass in 3 minutes or less. Next up, we have Freya and her elders. Kill these elders before engaging Freya unless you want the hardest mode of this fight, which I will cover in the future. 2 tanks should be fine for both 10 and 25 man. The first thing to note is that Freya has a massive hot on her that lowers as minions are killed. The second thing is, throughout the whole fight, this tree will spawn, which heals everything in the room for a large amount when it grows fully. Blast this thing down the moment you see it. Another of Freya's normal abilities is Sunbeam, which is a targeted 8-yard AoE that looks like Sunfire from retail. There are 3 unique sets of minions that she summons twice each for a total of 6 waves. One of them will be the Ancient Protector, who has a raid-wide silencing aura that is only removed by standing under a mushroom, and then a Lightning Living Bomb, which can get out of hand if everybody's under the same mushroom, so spread out a little bit. This minion is worth, I think, 30 of Freya's hot stacks. Another one of the waves will be a big group of these detonating lashers, which, as you can assume, blow up on death. These cannot be taunted, but they can be knocked back and CC'd, so it's best to stack everyone up, blast them away, and mow them down before they can get back to you. These ones are worth 2 of Freya's hot stacks each. The third of the waves is a trio of minions called the Snap Lasher, Storm Lasher, and Ancient Water Spirit. All of these must die within 12 seconds of each other or they will revive. The Snap Lasher gets significantly stronger as it gets hit, so range should focus this one while the tank kites it away, and I have heard that its stacks can be purged, though I have not confirmed it myself. The Storm Lasher will spam Lightning Lash and Storm Bolt, which are high damage AoE and single target nukes, and the Water Spirit will charge through the raid, dealing damage and potentially knocking people back. These are all worth 10 of Freya's hot stacks each. Once all 6 waves are down, she will summon Nature Bombs under everyone's feet, and they'll need to move to the other side of the river to not get hit, and then move back once she casts it again. This fight is very long and annoying to explain, but once you get the idea of what's going on, it's not that difficult. Says me, who was dead for most of it. After that, we have Thorim. He has a hard mode that I will cover later, and 2 tanks are recommended here. This is a 2.5 phase fight where you'll probably split your group down the middle. To start, take down the Dromonger and friends. Once this little half phase is done, the lever will unlock, and this is where you break off. If you have an odd number of healers, send the extra one to the tunnel, as they will need it. The arena group will hang back and be faced with a constant flow of ads to keep them busy, as well as Thorim throwing his hammer at someone every so often. The tunnel group, on the other hand, gets to deal with an imperial fuckload of damage on their way through. The ads in the hallway have a very high melee AoE, and while you're dealing with that, you also need to dodge these shockwaves that are being sent down range by the Colossus in the back. It's easy to see which half of the hallway will be hit, as it matches whatever hand the Colossus is holding up while it's casting. The Colossus itself has a lot of frontal cleave, so the tank needs to face it away from the tunnel group. After that, you'll fight the Rune Giant, which is kind of the same thing but just has a living bomb to be aware of. Once you kill this, wait here until his significant other flies away, or you will enter hard mode and most likely get your little guys frozen off if you aren't ready for that. Once she flies off, head toward Thorim while staying out the booby-trapped middle of this hallway to initiate phase 2. Thorim himself is easy enough. He has a chain lightning that does more damage the more people it hits, so everyone needs to be a little bit spread. He also has a tank slaying debuff, which is why you'll want 2 tanks for this, as it lowers someone's defense by 200 for 15 seconds, meaning he's gonna blow them into orbit pretty fast if it's not taunted off. Lastly, and most importantly, you'll notice these Tesla coils will start to charge Thorim briefly before he fires a very high damage cone of lightning covering 1/6 of the arena. This also adds permanent stacks of lightning charge to him, meaning you'll want to finish this fight much much sooner than later. Lastly, we have the beautiful bullet hell called Mimiron. This has an insane hard mode that I will cover in the future. There are 4 fucking phases to this one, so I'll try to be brief. 1 tank is okay on this one. For phase 1, the boss has proximity mines to be avoided by melee, and a napalm for the range that does huge impact and dot damage, a plasma blast for the tank that needs to be healed through or they'll die, and then the shock blast that follows the plasma blast will one-tap anyone within 15 yards of the boss, including your tank. Phase 2 is the bullet hell that will stress your healer's AoE healing abilities to their absolute limits. To start, the boss is constantly peppering the whole raid with light damage from what would be an auto attack. Additionally, there's a rocket strike that will go out occasionally, indicated by a red circle on the ground that does just barely enough damage to one-shot any and every person in it. If that wasn't enough, Heat Wave will be cast intermittently, which puts a moderate damage dot on the whole raid. And then the icing on this phase is after spinning up, the boss uses Pew Pew Laser Barrage, which is yet another near instant death to anyone caught in the very slow 180-degree spray that it does. Phase 3 is the Flying Head unit. This can't really be tanked by a melee, so most people assign a Warlock to holding threat so it doesn't move around too much. Aside from the Plasma Ball single target nuke, this phase is comprised of a bunch of adds being summoned. The Assault Bot does a ton of damage, so most people recommend kiting it. They cast a root that increases their target's damage taken too. When killed, this bot drops a magnetic core that needs to be looted and used to bring the Flying Head down. The head will take 50% more damage while it's grounded from the core. The other bots are a generic bomb bot that will explode on death, and a junk bot that doesn't really do anything important. Phase 4, baby, this is where the magic happens. Voltron is a literal combination of every previous phase all brought together at the same time to serve you up to the spirit healer on a Titan steel platter. I think the only differences are that phase 2's auto attack is now 3 times stronger, and it shoots 2 rockets at a time instead of 1, so enjoy that. All 3 pieces have separate health bars and must be killed together in a very small window or they will revive, so communication is going to be key. But that's about it. For the next or previous set of bosses, click here. Feel free to send this video to your raid members, and of course, like, comment, subscribe, follow, and join.